Hello, guys. Good morning, and I welcome you all to the session of Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning for Real-Time Applications. So, before moving ahead, I'd like to confirm if my voice is audible, as well as the screen which I'm presenting right now is visible to all of you. Kindly confirm me using your chat box. Thank you for the response. So, guys, I'm going to be taking two sessions today, like the first one and the other one after some time. So, like, we have divided these sessions into two modules. Like, the first one shall be understanding the real world applications, like in what domains we can see AI probably improvising and how it is affecting our daily lives in a positive way. And on the later on session, we'll understand like how probably we can feed some data as an input, and using some ML based algorithms, how my data is being processed.
Sir,
And
sorry for interruption. Sorry for interruption, sir. Please switch on the camera,
sure,
sir.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
Just a second. Okay, is my video visual now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
okay, most welcome. And also, sir, I'd like to say like there might be some bandwidth issues in the middle, so let me just keep the camera on. And despite if some issues are being faced, I have to just turn it off.
Yes,
So
sir.
I'll just
Yes, sir.
yeah, sure. All right. So here, as I was saying that in this first session of today, we're going to understand different scenarios, like how probably AI was introduced and what are the milestones it has faced so far, and moving further, how and in what kind of domains it has been used and is going to be used further each and every application. So, as we all know that artificial intelligence is not the only technology which makes it happen. So, it's a underlying scenario of both machine learning and deep learning techniques. So, here I can say that artificial intelligence is basically an intelligence displayed by a machine that stimulates or mimics a human behavior, and it can be also used for training a machine for solving specific problems. That's what we call as AI, and can be a combination of machine learning as well as deep learning techniques as we have over here. And using this, the models can be trained using enormous volumes of data, which have the ability to mimic or probably like correspondingly demonstrate a human behavior, and same way a human made thinking as well. So as we all familiar with lots of technologies and the brands we have listed here, you can see like we have Siri, we have Microsoft's virtual assistant, then we have Google, Amazon, Netflix. So these are different platforms which we are using in our daily lives. So all these platforms or organizations have already integrated AI based platforms in them. For instance, if you talk about virtual assistants in your mobile phones like iPhone or maybe your Android based devices, you could see that if you ask something like what is the time right now, it will make use of internet and provide you with the time. Or maybe if you ask your respective virtual assistant to turn on or turn off a specific functionality of your device, it will do so accordingly. Alongside, what are the things you do, like how you handle your device and how you interact with it, so that all those things will be learned by this AI device, so that it can provide you with a better experience moving ahead. So that's what we can call that AI is already present with what are the devices we are using. So that can be an example of virtual assistant. Speaking about Amazon or any other shopping like services like e-commerce websites, we can see that when you just scroll down your Flipkart or maybe Amazon application, you could see that it will be displaying you with the corresponding items or maybe like products, yeah, to be specific products, where these products will be aligned, or maybe like you might have searched them earlier, or there might be some price drop. So that way it will understand your habits, like what products attract you, what might not, Based on that, it will provide you the suggestion so that you can spend as much time possibly on the specific platform over there. And if you go on Netflix, it will provide you with a customized list of movies or maybe the web series so that you can again spend as much time possibly on their platform. And likewise, you can see AI is definitely improvising in various other platforms and domains, specifically in medical and healthcare, where it has a number of applications we can speak about later on. And in automation or automotive industries, we can see that we have Tesla as a better example with their autonomous cars. So they can drive automatically with the help of image processing and other machine learning as well as AI based techniques involved within. And moving further, we also have several Land Rovers which can make further decisions on their own. It's not like they are coming up with new decisions. So their decisions have been already fed to them and they have been trained in such a way that if it interacts with any such a alien rock or maybe something else, it should know in what way it has to overcome that so that it can navigate again back to its own track. So likewise, these are how we are being we can see AI probably finding its applications in these platforms which we already are using in our daily life scenarios. So moving further, let's also have an understanding about history, about artificial intelligence, like whether when it was started and the time when it was started, was it accepted wholly, yes or no? So that's what we also have to understand. Basically, the milestones the artificial intelligence has to go across before it is accepted what or like we can say like before what it is sorry what it is right now was not the scenario before when it was invented or maybe when it was put to work. So that way it has had a different history, so we can understand here. So basically AI, as I said, that was an introduction way by around 1950. So AI is not a new technology to be specific, it's an older technology straight from 1950s or maybe prior to that, but it was only in papers or maybe only in thoughts or maybe only a few people or few scientists were able to understand like how it could be or maybe how a machine can be made to mimic a human behavior, or basically putting a machine to think or maybe to differentiate two or more inputs so that it can provide you with the corresponding output. And that way we understood that if we want to achieve artificial intelligence, we definitely need to have machines which have the ability and flexibility to understand things, and within that they can also make their decisions. So here you can see that from 1980s we started working on machines where these machines are not only just to help us in our daily routines, like not only helping us with manual effort, but also should have a capability of differentiating things like how a human brain thinks. So which has to be prioritized first, or maybe how the data should be differentiated. So that kind of behavior should be coming into the machines, and isn't that the study as well as the research was done starting from 1980s all the way even now that's going on. And later on 2010s where we had internet, so that's where deep learning was also introduced, where there were several other technologies underlying like artificial neural network, which was probably called something else prior to that, so which should mimic human behavior or maybe like a human brain itself, where the neurons know how to fetch some input and where that input should be signaled further, so how the other neurons connected to them should behave accordingly. So likewise artificial intelligence, as I told you earlier, is basically a combination of all these machine learning as well as deep learning, where step by step they were improvising one after another, year by year. So you're going to understand the history of artificial intelligence. As I told you that most of the people assume artificial intelligence it's basically like a new technology, but the concept here been is around for a longer time, where several significant milestones in its history has helped the artificial intelligence capabilities to improvise year after year. So now you can see we have listed quite a few moments or maybe periods where AI has found its way further, or maybe it was put down and again taken back and was further put to research. So that way, how it was improvised one after another. So yeah, basically like artificial intelligence, you can see like in the early 20th century, where the concepts would ultimately result in science fiction. So people generally had thoughts like, okay, something related to this could happen, but they didn't have a vision like how to proceed further. Like we would have watched the movie, right? I Robot. So basically, that's an example like how artificial intelligence would depict. Like that's how the thoughts were back then in the people's mind. Like for example, we have scientist called as Asimov. So he envisioned that there has to be three laws of robotics and a computer, which could answer questions because it could store human knowledge, and it also should be capable of understanding how a human basically interacts with his daily things, or with the people, or with anything he interacts with on a daily basis. So around 1943, with a collaboration between Warren as well as Pitts. So these were the two people. They combined together, introduced the idea where the logical functions could be completed through networks of artificial neurons. And now we generally call this as artificial neural network. So here, basically, they presented a paper called as illogical calculus of ideas imminent in nervous activity. So this is what we call as ANN in short form. Alongside, there was another person called as Alan Turing, which we already are aware about. He basically invented Turing test, where we can understand Turing test as basically a human behavior. Sorry, the machines or maybe hardware's capability in understanding things, or maybe mimicking a human behavior, or maybe specializing in it to an extent that it reflects as such as it's basically human itself. So that's what we call as a Turing test, which would essentially help us to understand when machines reached intelligence. And basically, the first autonomous robot called Elmer as well as Elsie, were known as tortoises, was also created back then. And moving further, we had a Dartmouth conference, which was around 1956 to be approximate, where the term artificial intelligence itself was coined here at a workshop, and it was organized by Mr. John McCarthy at the Dartmouth College itself. So moving further, the event brought together different experts in the field of machine learning, like bringing like-minded people together, and the neural networks definitely to generate new ideas, and also to have a debate on how we can tackle and further push artificial intelligence rather than just being having them on papers, but also implementing them in further real-time applications like computer vision, natural language processing, all that basically were on the agenda. Moving further, we also had something called as the chatbot. So it comes with the name called as ELIZA, ELIZA we call it, and it was approximately in 1966. This was the very first chatbot which was introduced, or maybe we can say that it is the very first chatbot itself. So before Alexa and Siri, this was the one which used to interact with people. So basically, to understand how the chatbot would look like. So that was this the first thing they had introduced here, and it was created at MIT by Joseph Weizenbaum, and it basically couldn't speak, but it used to communicate as in the form of text. So now, moving further, like as I told you earlier, AI definitely was not heartfully accepted, like year by year. So it had some improvisations, and same it also had some deprovisation. So you can see, as in the period of 1974 to 1980, we call this as AI first winter, which means that it was accepted until 1970s, but lots of investment was done by different governments in different developed countries back then. They probably were having a much higher expectation, like we have estimated sorry, we have invested so much in this technology, but we have not received the fruit. So that way, like because of these kind of mindsets, the technology was put down. So like for some period there was no research done it because there was no funding on that. And later on, around 1980s, or maybe after that, it was again revived, or we can say like it was further taken up, and it was funded by not only British but also other different governments. We based on that, it was again done with lots of research. And then with this research, we can also understand that here, like we have something called as XCon, the XCon expert learning system, which can be probably from Digital Equipment Corporation, which was credited with saving the company like almost 40 million annually from 1980 to 1986. And here it was basically a significant milestone for artificial intelligence because it demonstrated that it was not just a cool technological feat, but also it actually had an important real world application. And basically these applications were becoming narrower and having a narrower focus, as well as programmed artificial intelligence to solve a particular problem. So businesses then began to understand that the impact of AI could have on operations, as well as the money could be saved in a much more higher way. And moving further, it further led to investments by companies in 1985 to further increase that to the revenue of $1 billion per year for artificial intelligence systems alone. And again, as can see, lots of investments were done, but again it has also faced some backlash, and we call this as second AI winter, which is the period between 1987 to 1993. And what do I mean by that? So as I told you that prior to this, lots of organizations, like one particular organization has taken some profit from that. Based on that, the other organizations were also started investing in it. So at the start, they were probably getting much expected outcomes, but that was not the scenario because market was not constant. That again further pushed this AI into the second degeneration. So likewise, it was further not finding much more investments to be done, not more funding was to be also provided. Okay, so one of our participant has raised a hand. So, is there something you want to say, please? Okay, so let's continue further. And as I was saying that basically there were probably forwards and backlogs in probably the technology understanding as well as funding together. But you can see that in 1990s where we had internet, so probably in most of the Arab countries they were having internet back then, where that was further helping AI to move forward. Okay, so here you can see that a researcher called as Tim Berners-Lee published the hypertext transfer protocol, which we call as internet right now. So when you browse our web pages, basically they are hypertext transfer protocol based files which you are browsing step by step, included with CSS, PHP, and other different languages. So likewise here, the data to be shared no matter who or where you are, where data is the fuel for artificial intelligence. And here there's a very little doubt that AI probably has progressed further. And now they can not only be able to store data, but also provide data to the AI application with the help of internet. So if it probably is receiving some input, so with the help of internet as a platform, it can take that data as an input and process that with the help of internet, and based on that it will provide you with the required output. So internet further pushed how probably AI resembled. And later on in 1997, where IBM's Deep Blue computer, where they designed this computer probably for the purpose of playing chess. And here you can see that it's another milestone for artificial intelligence when the world chess champion called as Gary Kasparov back then was defeated in a match of chess by this respective computer, which is known as Deep Blue computer by IBM again. And this probably further improvised the understanding of how people had about AI in terms of negative aspects. So they also had an understanding that okay, so there is definitely a technological advancement in terms of AI, so that we can see that that is happening right in front of our eyes. So that way, it was very much appreciated further. And After then it was just you can say like it was probably what we are witnessing right now. So like there was artificial intelligence by Steven Spielberg, which further improvised towards pushing it towards autonomous vehicles and other DARPA Grand Challenge 2005 as such, where basically it was also further implemented in uh, racing as well. Then the AI which was used by people, so that was pushed for the first time by Apple, and that was through virtual assistant, which we are familiar with, which is known as Siri. And later on, it was further pushed by Google, which you call now as Google Assistant. Then by 2014, we probably had Amazon Echo, which we call as Alexa. And after then, everything is just what we are witnessing right now. So that way we can see that AI basically has had a huge milestone, and it has its own ups and downs where the technology was probably like put down sometimes and again taken back. That way it has further improvised, and I can see it has found a stable market right now in many domains. It can be either healthcare or maybe uh, robotics or maybe automotive. So everywhere, yeah, like everywhere you could see AI has to play some part using which the organizations can benefit themselves. So that way this is how the AI was probably introduced and was probably used in our daily life. Moving further, before understanding the application of artificial intelligence, let's also understand the machine learning process. So I believe all of you are already familiar with the machine learning process, right? So here, not just giving you an overview of how the applications of AI are in real time. Rather than that, we also should understand like how a machine itself learns, right? So here we can see we probably have a flow chart which demonstrates how we can train a machine to learn something. For example, to keep things simpler, I can also say that how we are going to teach a child to learn something. Like for instance, there can be a small child who's learning English language for the very first time. So how would we make him or her to learn? So we'll basically start from alphabets, right? The same way we need to consider that a machine which doesn't know anything right now is basically like a child, where we have to feed our data, and that data has to be fed and pre-processed, as well as should be given with some differentiation that depth of a few algorithms like a supervised or unsupervised manner. The machine should be capable of differentiating that. And it's not that at the very first instant itself the machine will be able to differentiate it. It will definitely take some time. And by understanding different characteristics of different images, it will be able to have a conclusion that okay, so this data is somewhat different to this. So for instance, if I'm providing two images, that way machine then will have some capability saying that okay, so if you have provided me with two images right now, that way the first image is representing something else and the other image is also representing something else. So how does it do that? That's through the characteristics. For instance, the first image which I have provided shall be the image of a dog, which shall have different facial expressions, and the tail of the dog as well as the size of the dog might be different in comparison with the second image, which should be the image of a cat, where the facial expressions and the shape of the cat itself would be different, and the tail and the legs. So, likewise, based on these physical characteristics, AI or sorry, a machine learning model will be able to understand. So these things also we have to teach, as in the form of a supervised learning, or maybe in terms of unsupervised learning, the machine will be itself capable of just finding the differences between them. And as we are providing n number of images one after another for many times, that way machine will have stored this data. Okay, dog means these characteristics and cat means these characteristics alone. That way it come to a conclusion that when you're providing an image of a dog, it will say that it's basically a dog. Or when you provide an image of a cat, it will definitely have a conclusion that okay, this is a cat as well. So here, basically, how does this machine learning process happens? So that's what we're going to do now. The first step starts with basically acquiring the data, or you can call this as data collection. So first thing here, the problem we want to solve, we have to have investigate and obtain the data which we will use to feed our machine. And here the quality as well as the quantity of information we get are basically very important, because this is what you're going to feed to a machine. It's like for instance, if I have a child, if I'm teaching her or him like how to learn something. Basically, I have to be careful with teaching my alphabets, right? Only if he or she gets the alphabets right, she'll be able to learn a paragraph or maybe a sentence itself. So that's why we're like prioritizing the importance of data which we are going to provide here. So basically, the quality as well as the quantity also should be considered in mind. And that way, the information in an existing database, or maybe we can probably also create it from scratch. And that information can be provided to my machine by means of a spreadsheet, or maybe exported as a CSV file asset. And it's also you common probably to use web scraping techniques to automatically collect information from various sources in the form of APIs, obviously. So likewise, here data I can be able to collect from different sources, which has to be like not only quantitative but also should be qualitative. So machine should have like the images. For instance, I'm talking about providing images. The images should be very much clear. They should not be pixelating. So that way, machine should be capable enough to differentiate if I'm providing two images. Okay, what is different in image one, and that is differentiating with the image two as such. So basically here we are collecting the data through different scenarios. It can be basically from a sensor in terms of any embedded device or an IoT device, which could be directly fed from the cloud to a machine, or maybe I'm downloading some images, or maybe from a web source itself, I'm feeding some images to my machine so that it can accept that as an input, and then based on that, it can provide a machine learning process. So now let's understand that we have probably fetched the data from any of the one scenarios. So now this data can be images, or can be a spreadsheet file, or anything, or maybe coming from a sensor itself. So these data values, or maybe data images, I'm providing to my machine. And now the second step is data pre-processing. What do we mean by that? For instance, like when we receive an I'm going out of the context, but for understanding purpose I'm just doing that. Like for instance, when we receive an analog signal through an antenna from a receiver device, internally there are a number of amplifications we have to do, because the signal which we receive might not be what is like, it might first of all consist in like more noise. It can be of different forms. To eliminate that, first of all we have to remove those noises, and after that the original signal which we have, the modulated frequency, might be in a weaker state. So to improvise it, we will go through an amplification process. So the same process applied here, where through data pre-processing we are correcting and removing anomalous data, which means that we probably are taking only the data which is very much enough for my machine to learn, and we are just avoiding, or maybe like rejecting the data which is not prevalent for the machine, where there can be pixelated images, or maybe data can be above or maybe beyond the limit. So that way this kind of data is probably being rejected. And also, like for instance, if the machine is performing calculation where I'm providing two different set of values, that way I have to convert and make sure that there are no strings, but there's only numbers as such. So basically, it is to visualize the data and check if there are any correlations between the different characteristics that we have to obtain. And it will also be necessary to make a selection of characteristics, since the ones we choose will directly impact the execution times and the results. We can also reduce the dimensions by applying different techniques also if necessary. And additionally, we also should balance the amount of data we have for each result class, so that it probably is significant, as the learning may be biased towards a type of response. And when a model tries to generalize knowledge, it should not fail. So that way we have to be prioritizing data, and we should also understand that it has to be very much clear and should be focused on what kind of data the machine is going to process alone. So like we can probably we can generally categorize data into two or more groups, like one for training and the other for evaluation, which can be further divided approximately in a ratio of like 80-20, or maybe like 60-40 as said. So it can also vary depending on the case and the volume of data we have. So likewise here we basically pre-process our data by normalizing, eliminating duplicates, and also making further any error corrections if they are present. And next we have here is test data and train data. Before that, we also have to choose the model. So what do I mean by choosing the model? So now we have a machine learning process, right? So this machine is being fed by some data, and this data is also probably improvised, which means that I have neglected the unwanted data scenarios. So I'm providing only the quality based data to my machine. So now there are different terms of learning a machine can go through, like different models of learning you can say. So like among them, which is the best suitable for me? So that's what I would prefer to provide as an algorithm. Like for example, we can have different things like of algorithms of classification, prediction, linear regression, clustering, or k-nearest neighbor, deep learning like neural networks or Bayesian or maybe k-means itself. So like here we're going to understand which kind of algorithm I'm going to provide to my machine so that it can be able to use it for different processes. So for instance, if it's going to predict some number values, that way I could follow a regression model. Or maybe it's going to classify some information, like if I'm providing two or more set of values, it is going to classify it accordingly. That way we have to provide artificial neural networks based algorithms. And then if you are performing an image processing here, that way we can also follow convolutional neural network algorithm. Or maybe if it's about voice recognition, fraud detection assets, then we can make use of recurrent neural networks, etc. So likewise there are different algorithms which could be used for different process of machine learning techniques. So now we're going to decide here which model we are going to prefer, and based on that we are going to train a machine model. So what do I mean by train and test here? So first thing here is, as I told you that 60-40, right? So 60 shall be for training purpose and 40 shall be for testing purpose. So likewise I'm providing the whole data to my machine learning, of which 60, like for instance if I have 100 images, I'm providing 60 images for my training data as well as 40 images for my test data. So now under using my 60 images, machine will differentiate how each and every image different, like differs from itself. Like it understands the characteristics of how a dog looks like, how its facial expressions would be, and what might be its height and weight probably in general. Same way it can have a similar scenarios or similar test case for cat, maybe its facial expressions and other different characteristics. So now machine learning, this machine would have come to a basic conclusion that okay, this is how the dog should look like and this is how a cat would look like. So based on that, the machine will have what is like an approximate understanding of how they both differ from each other. So right now the machine has just a basic overview but has not come to a complete conclusion that this what differs and makes a dog and this what a cat is look like. So likewise, using this trained data, the machine should also test the other data images so that it can understand that okay, so like for instance if I'm learning something, I have to test myself to understand how much I have learned. Like for instance, in our general life, we probably have exams, right, which demonstrate our capability of understanding things and probably making use of our logical as well as reasoning skills. Same way here, the machine should be also making use of similar ways to understand and differentiate between two or more categories or maybe two or more data sets. So that way, it first of all trains itself using a different model. So using a specific model we have provided to it, and based on that, once it comes to a basic conclusion that okay, I know that now there's some basic differentiate between this and that, that way it can go ahead and make use of the test case scenarios to understand and test that okay, so whether the other images we have for the test case scenario could be able to differentiate, sorry, the machine will be able to differentiate between them or not, and if it comes with the same output, then we shall go ahead and build and deploy a model. So before building and deploying a model itself, they can probably call this also as a step of evaluation. So here we probably need to train the datasets to run smoothly and see an incremental improvement in the prediction rate. So now the machine should have a probable prediction rate that should not be just what is like an approximation, but also should be somewhere related to accuracy. So now we also have to remember to initialize the weights of the model randomly, where the weights are values or probably the relationships between the inputs and outputs, which will probably automatically adjust the selected algorithm. And the more we train them, the better the model becomes. So now here, after building this model, we also have to evaluate. So that's what we call as also test model. So now under the evaluation process, we have to check whether the machine created against a evaluation dataset which contains inputs which we have fed here, where the model does not know and verify the precision of your our previously trained model. So we basically provide some input, and here in the test case scenario, we're just testing that by providing further inputs whether the machine is providing you with a similar response, and whether that response is what is it, like measurable in real time, whether the differentiation in the characteristics of two or more images the machine is doing, whether the same is being done by human, or be like we are able to find it in real time. So that way, that's what we are going to understand here by the process of evaluation. So likewise, if the accuracy is less than or equal to 50%, the model will not be useful, because it would be like tossing a coin. Like for instance, if I'm tossing a coin, I'm going to get only heads or tails. But that should not be the scenario here. Until and unless we reach the accuracy of 90% or more, you have to keep repeating the process so that the machine can learn and differentiate and learn and differentiate. And only until the machine reaches 90% and above accuracy, we can understand that okay, now the model is worth evaluating and can be further deployed. Okay, so sorry to interrupt. I can see that participants are raising the hand. So if anyone has any queries, you can kindly ask me by unmuting yourself, or maybe provide the same in the chat box.
Sir, I have a question. If the data is like object type, how do we convert that into float type, sir? Because I have a problem in my data.
Object type in the sense, ma'am, like can you be specific, please?
Can I share the screen, sir, and show?
Sure, sure.
Sir, this can you see now, sir?
Yes, ma'am, this one is visible.
Yes, it is like object type. Yes, but the data is numeric only. If you see here, the data is numeric, but I don't know why it is taking as object here. Data type object one here it is showing. So I
Okay.
try to convert that like this, but I don't know, it's not accepting.
Can you please scroll up? So where are you taking this data from, ma'am? Like these values?
CSV file, sir. CSV file. I can show that file also.
Okay, so probably it's in.
Yes, sir. This is a CSV file.
Okay, when you're reading it, it's showing properly, but when you're trying to work with it, it is showing errors.
Only the last row it is showing as object type, sir. I have no problem with these rows, but
Okay,
I'm getting the problem with this row.
last column. Okay,
A last column, sorry, sir.
okay, no issues. Can you go back, ma'am? Go back to the other screen. So scroll down. Further down. Okay, so I'll look into it. Maybe the in the other session, I'll just provide you with the scenario, like what might be the cause.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Sure.
Okay. Sir.
Sir, one question in my side
Please,
that
ma'am.
if 50% accuracy is there, then what machine do? And if 90% is there, then what machine do? Please explain again, sir.
Like what I was trying to say is, ma'am, like for instance, like I'll say that, for example, I'm learning alphabets and where I am knowing only 50% of alphabets. So will I be able to read a sentence completely? Definitely not. So if I'm learning alphabets like until 90% or maybe above that, I might have an understanding of, okay, this what A is, this what B is, and this C is. So that will help me in forming a sentence. That
Yes.
is always understood that, and it's always required that we should have a 90% or more accuracy so that a machine can provide you with a successful output.
So 50% is not sufficient
Exactly,
to
not
just.
sufficient.
Oh,
We can also say
thank
that
you.
the machine is in the process of learning. So we have to still provide more inputs to it.
More
We have
accurate.
to increase it, yes.
Yes, yes.
All right. So I hope my screen is visible now. Okay. So here we get. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. So here we were understanding about evaluation, right? As I told you that first thing, we need to ensure how much the output provided by the machine is approximately understood that it is correct or right. Based on that, we can come forward and evaluate a model, and that's what we call it also as a build and test model process. And even after that, we also have to do some tuning in the parameters, like based on the algorithm we follow. As I told you that there might be some scenarios where the machine might give you above 90%, and there might be some scenario the machine can provide you an output of above 95%. So to have more accuracy, you can do some minor changes in the parameters of your algorithm so that the machine can be able to understand the differences between the dataset values you are providing to them, and then based on that it can be able to provide you with a much higher accuracy rate. So that is what we call as parameter tuning, where if we basically do not obtain good predictions and a prediction precision is not the minimum desired, then it is possible that we have overfitting or underfitting problems, and that way we must return to the training step before making a new configuration of parameters in a model, way using that we can increase the number of times we iterate to train the data. And another important parameter is to known as the learning rate, so here which demonstrates the value that multiplies the gradient to gradually but also brings it closer to the global or local minimum to minimum size cost of the function. So that way increasing the parameter value from zero point 0.1 units to 0.001 or maybe beyond that is not the same, but can significantly affect the model execution time and also will affect your uh, output of your respective accuracy of your model itself. And lastly, we have prediction and inference, where once after evaluating, then after fine tuning our parameters within the model so that we can get as maximum accuracy possibly, we can say that a model is approved, or else we also have to again go back and follow the same process. We have to feed the respective inputs with much more clearer data so that the machine can recognize it and then again perform the same training and evaluation testing, and then deploying that model. Then we can see that okay, the machine is probably doing well now, and now it has successfully learned to differentiate between the image A and image B, or maybe two or more categories of dataset values. And now after that we can see that the model has evaluated a probably correct output on the test data which we have provided. Thus the performance of the model is as per expectation, like how a human mind would look like, or maybe would correspond to the same kind of input when it is provided. Then we can proceed further with the deployment of the model. So we can further add it or maybe use it with the other technologies so that it can be used in real-time applications. So with this, we shall understand, like we now have a basic understanding of how a machine learning process would look like, right? So with this, what are the opportunities the AI as well as ML has in different scenarios? So you can see how we have listed in a number of technologies, like we have programming. So now we can see that programming is a major trend where with each season there's a new programming language coming into the market. So for the software engineers or the people who are into that respective trend have to upgrade themselves so that they can keep things running smoothly on the side of either organizations or maybe on the side of personal aspects as well. So that way, if we have a machine which can learn any programming language on its own and is capable of differentiating that, that way organizations can probably initially invest a lot of amount on that respective technology, but later on it will provide them with a consistent uh, profit as the days improvise. There's no need for an organization to probably stress much or their employees to learn new languages. Rather than they can probably have their employees to work on different scenarios and asking these AI based technologies to do the programming and other stuff. So that way it will be a much profitable situation for a number of organizations under this respective scenario. And communication, like we already have an example, right? So not maybe this year, maybe like 2 to 3 years ago, Google came up with a technology called as Google Duplex, so which was only in the Google based devices, which means that what do you call that? So Google has its own list of devices, right? Like Apple has iPhones, same way Google has its own mobile phones. Under that, Google Duplex is a technology which is provided even now. So that way you can see that here the AI based calling. So what happens, like for instance, if you want to book a table on a restaurant, basically an AI in the mobile does a calling to the so and so restaurant, and it makes of its internal natural language processing to mimic a human behavior as well as a human voice, so that it can book a table for you and also reserve it without a doubt for the person on the other side saying that okay, this conversation is between a robot and me. So the other person who is having conversation will have an understanding that okay, there's some other person who is trying to book a table as such. So that's how AI has probably gone for. And in robotics, computer vision, we can probably imagine like how further this technology of robotics have gone. Like we probably can talk about a robot called as android robot like Sophia. So the other one is also in the market, which is called as Ameka, which I shall provide you with a video maybe at the end of the session. That way robotics is further improvising, so that uh, the movies which we watch, like where we have robots which we who talk to people and who do the daily course for the people, is definitely not what is like, it's not a fantasy, it is going to be real in the coming years. So that way artificial intelligence is pushing the robots to become more natural and become more human as well. And in computer vision, probably to differentiate different scenarios, like to differentiate images or maybe data set values or maybe different processes, definitely AI is again helping a lot. And in gaming, like for the students or maybe for the people, or maybe for the people who want to learn something itself, it's not only about gaming, it's also about interacting with a virtual environment. So that way AI is also improvising that and providing a better experience, so that you can have not only a gaming experience but also you can be able to learn things which will remain with you further even after you have played the game itself. And in music, as I told, like for example Netflix, which I briefed you earlier on the very first slide, same way in different applications or music applications you have in a mobile devices, it will read your habits, and based on that it will provide you the suggestions of the modified list, like what kind of songs are liked by you, what kind of songs you might not like. So based on your mood or based on your likes and dislikes, it will, can be able to provide a suggestion. And we can also have AI based robots which can also compose the music itself. So that's not a trend right now, but that might not be a fantasy in the coming years. And technology, you can say like in any technology you talk about, AI is definitely making a lot of change. Specifically in medical science, AI has a lot of opportunity, because there can be some worst case scenarios where doctors might not be present or maybe even if they are present, so there has to be some minute surgeries which could be done possibly by such robots as well as AIs itself. So in future we can definitely find that it would be normalized to have AI-based robots doing operations on humans or maybe on the animals, basically to save their lives itself. So these are the kind of opportunities we have. Basically, the artificial intelligence and machine learning has in these many domains, where we shall further understand the process with the help of its applications. So you can see I have listed a number of applications which you might be familiar with. And the reason why I'm saying you might be familiar with, because we have in one or the other way interacted with these kind of domains in our daily life, where you can see that unknowingly or knowingly we might have also found that AI is behind it. So let's start with e-commerce. Obviously, starting with e-commerce, I can talk about Flipkart or Amazon, where I just gave you an overview of, like, it will provide you the recommended list of products, or maybe in any other website. If you're doing any shopping itself, it will definitely provide you a recommended list of websites or maybe customized page for you itself, so that you can go ahead and do some shopping for yourself. And here, personalized shopping basically means that where AI is behind and is used to create recommendation engines through which you can engage better with your customers. So this is for the purpose of like for the Flipkart or Amazon, where AI provides them with a service that it learns about a person. Like for instance, if I'm having a mobile phone, under that I have my Flipkart application, I might have bought a number of products, maybe from what is it, like 2015 itself, or 2016, and even now, like 2021. So based on the list of products I have bought, so that way it generate some amount of information so that it can be used by this Flipkart websites or maybe the employees behind it, so they can come to a conclusion that how my tastes are, what are my likes and what are my dislikes. That way it can be able to have a clear understanding of what my personality itself is. So that way it can possibly done with the help of AI again. So this can possibly happen with the help of how we browse, like basically my browser history as well as the preferences, and what interests me and what disinterests me as such. And also it further helps for the organizations to improve their relationships with the customers. Like for instance, Flipkart, for instance, if I have received any defective product from any such e-commerce website, that way they can be able to understand by communicating with us, and also we are understanding our previous history, like how my shopping has been. So whether it was completely fine, there were no issues so far, they'll have an understanding that okay, this customer is a genuine customer from our website, so he needs to be provided with a genuine service from our side. If I'm having a history of like not being proper to the website, or maybe returning products as many times as possibly, so that way they can provide and generate a customer response accordingly. So that way it helps such e-commerce based sites or maybe organizations to have an understanding of how the customers are and how do they interact, and basically based on that they can provide their services so that the customer can be happy, and also keep them to spend as much time possibly on their so and so sites or applications itself. And then we have artificial intelligence powered assistants, where for instance, as I said, that if I'm received a product, or if I've received a defective product, the first thing I'd like to do is, like, I'll go ahead and probably click on the return or maybe replacement button. Soon after that, a chatbot or chat box will pop up asking me like what is the issue with the product. That way I can just type so and so. That way there can be pre-feeded data into the so and so cloud. Based on my input, the pre-fed data will be matched accordingly by the AI chatbot again, and then it will provide me with a response. So the response would something look like a way real-time person itself is like talking with me, but behind it's basically an AI which is playing the role. So here it makes of a technology which we all familiar with, is natural language processing, which can be used to make the conversation sound as human as possibly, and also tries to keep it as private as possible also. And using this in using this again, it also helps this organization to prevent fraud, and also helps in detection of any such fraud happenings, either from the side of customers or maybe from side of the vendors itself. So likewise, many customers probably prefer to buy a product or service based on the customer reviews, and that way AI can help identify and handle fake reviews in that scenario as well. And next we can talk about is education. So education, you can see that is one such industry, or sorry, to call, we should not call it as an industry, to be specific we can call it as a domain, where it's one such domain which is going to be improvising further and is going to adapt or get adaptive with a number of technologies, like we have augmented reality, virtual reality. So all this can be put together into an education, so that it can education can be made a further interested experience for the students, so that they can not only mix of books and test to learn and improvise, but can be able to interact with real life scenarios. For instance, if I want to learn about an engine, it's not only for me to that I have to open a book which is published by so and so author who has done a lot of research on the engines. All I can do is like have my virtual camera on, and then I can be able to see how an engine looks like in real time. I can be also be able to interact it virtually, and that way I can be able to have a clear understanding of how the processes work in real time. So there's a difference between learning things traditionally and also learning things with advanced technology. So that's where AI is also bridging the gap. Alongside, in the organizations which provide such services like educational services, there can be a number of tasks which might be what do you say, like consuming more time, and that might be stressing out the staff or maybe the people who are working there itself. So we can collectively call them as administrative tasks which can be automated, so that educators can benefit them, so that they can only focus on enhancing the learning of their students rather than not spending much time on doing any other administrative based tasks, so that they probably should not be what is like non-productive based on that aspect. So likewise, AI can basically help educators with non-educational tasks, like task-related duties, which can be put into like facilitating, automating personalized messages to the students, back office tasks like grading paperwork, arranging as well as facilitating parent or maybe the guardian itself, and interacting with them through an online meeting or anything similar to that, or maybe any routine issue feedback providing, or maybe managing enrollment or courses or human resource related topics itself. And then it also helps the educators to create a smart content. So based on the teaching habits, based on the learning habits of the student, AI can come forward and categorize like, okay, this is how the students are performing. So you need to improvise further, like for instance, in terms of your teaching habits, or maybe if a student is definitely not performing well constantly, that might be a scenario where student has to improvise or maybe have to have some differentiation in his learning techniques. So these things again can be formulated and provided by artificial intelligence itself. Like for instance, digitization of the content like video lectures, conferences, and textbook guides can be made using AI itself with the help of a few internal algorithms designed for the machine. And then we can be able to apply these different techniques or interface like animations and the content learning through customization for different students, for different regions, or maybe for different language backgrounds itself. And then speaking about education itself, we can again talk about voice assistants as well as personalized learning. So voice assistants can be used without even the direct involvement of the lecturer or the teacher. A student can access extra learning material or assistance through voice assistants. Through this, the printing cost of temporary handbooks as well as the answers providing to a very common questions can be made easier. For instance, like if a lecturer is taking some class or maybe providing some output or maybe online class to a student, some students can get it and some students might not get it. So that way they might have a common doubt, which is not required for a lecturer itself to always handle that answer. So that way, in that scenario, the chatbot or maybe an AI based bot can handle the conversation and provide the desired output or an answer the students are expecting from. So that way it's further simplifying the jobs of lecturers and the professors, so that they can completely focus on how they can provide a better as well as rich learning experience for the students alone, rather than not spending time on much what is like unproductive works. And personalized learning for both or you can call this as personalized teaching scenarios for this staff, like whether how can they how further they can improvise so the students can understand much better, and personalized learning for the students, so that with the help of several algorithms, AI can formulate and provide such scenarios where students can make use of different timetables or different scenarios using which they can be able to understand content in a much better way, and also they can be able to implement it practically. So that way these kind of scenarios or possibilities can be generated by again artificial intelligence. Like we have Byju's or any other online platform we can talk about, they definitely come up with personalized learning or customized learning as such. So that is basically the make use of AI based techniques, so that based on different students they can generate different customized learning experiences, so that the students can make use of that, and there's no need for the student to stress himself or herself to follow only one way. Rather than that, the education can be provided in much different ways, which is simplified by AI based techniques. And specifically in lifestyle or maybe the daily habits which we follow, that might be the next application of artificial intelligence, where we can see that it has a lot of influence on our lifestyle. For instance, right from the mobile apps we use, all the way until how we interact with other people, or maybe like how we interact with the colleagues in an organization itself. Definitely AI has a role to play, because all the things or all the people we are interacting with, one or the other way, AI is definitely doing some help unknowingly behind us. For instance, you can see that in our lifestyles, for instance, for people who are fitness minded, so they definitely are concentrating more towards having a healthy lifestyle in terms of developing healthy eating habits as well as healthy exercising habits, and then improvising the meditation as well as following a better sleep as such. So all these things which are done by the healthy people, like the people who want to be healthy, is being tracked by either a fitness band or maybe a smart monitoring equipment, and that data is already stored on the cloud. And based on that, there's an again AI used here in these wellness or fitness applications, which will provide a recommended routine, like how much, for instance, if like for instance, like sorry. So now let's assume that I'm a fitness freak and I'm probably following so and so food habits as well as so and so exercising as well as sleeping habits. So now based on how like whether my health is improvising or deprovising, the data which is being stored on the cloud, again there's an artificial intelligence platform behind which will provide me with a suggestion that okay, so now you're improvising, and to hit your milestone of reducing so and so amount of kilos, you have to either increase your exercise or maybe decrease your consumption of so and so what do you say, like junk food, etc. So that way AI is again behind for such people who want to probably achieve such fitness levels and also remain healthy for a longer time. And alongside all the other things, like for instance in our daily lives, like what are the applications or the websites we interact with, so we also have to ensure that, or probably we can what is it, like interact with a number of things, of which some might also be spam. So that way again artificial intelligence is behind there and helps us to recognize whether what is spam and what is not. So that way, like for instance, if you are receiving a number of emails, so again these email technologies also makes use of artificial intelligence behind, which filters out these spam emails, sending them to spam or trash folders. So it happens automatically unknowingly, like when I'm going to my mailbox and opening my spam or trash folder, I could see that there are again different mails which I have not even read, which I am not even aware of. That way there are some listings which are online, and based on that the AI is capable of demonstrating whether this is an original mail from a so-and-so person, or maybe it's just a spam which is trying to get most of me in terms of my money, or maybe gaining profit from my side. So that way again these kind of mails or maybe organizations provide AI based techniques to sort out different notifications or mails, etc. And facial recognition, like for instance, we are probably surrounded with our devices like laptops, mobile phones, or maybe personal computers. They also make use of facial features, and also by using face filters to detect and identify in order to provide a secure access, so that only the authorized person can have an access to so and so device. And also we can talk about smart homes, right? So smart home, the first key for a smart home is to have a better security as well as a better uh, recognition. It can be either biometric or facial. So based on these kind of techniques, it can recognize whether a person belongs to so and so home or not, so that we can understand and say that you are authorized to enter into the facility or maybe you're not authorized to do so. Same way, like apart from personal usage, facial recognition is also widely used artificial intelligence application in higher security related areas and also in different industries. And recommendation system is again a part of lifestyle process where various platforms which we use in our daily lives like e-commerce, entertainment websites, social media, video sharing platforms, or maybe YouTube itself, etc. So these also use recommendation systems to get the user data as well as provide customized recommendations. So this is the thing I was talking about Netflix, right, in the first slide. So that's what I mean by here. And here, the reason here they do so is to increase user engagement. So to simply make you spend as much time possibly on their so and so platforms. And that way, these kind of applications or organizations make use of AI based applications to keep you probably interactive as much as possibly on their so and so platforms. And then speaking about artificial intelligence in navigation. So speaking about navigation, like we could say that Google Maps is one of the most helpful apps for us in terms of navigation, right? So it has been in the market from a very long time. So now you can see that how probably Google Maps understands and provides us with a shorter route between the source and destination. So simply we can say that again, artificial intelligence is behind the cause. So it's not that there's a person behind. Like for instance, if I'm opening a Google map and right now I'm in Bangalore, if I want to navigate from Bangalore to Mumbai, so it will show me a shorter route or maybe an optimized route if I'm traveling through a car or a bike. So that way, this is automatically provided by an AI behind, and it's not that there are employees from Google who will be assigned so that they can track the optimized route and then provide me with an output. No, the tracking is done by the satellite, and the calculation and the estimation is done by the artificial intelligence bot, and then the output is provided for a user so that I can understand and navigate by the optimized route so that I can reach on the destination for so and so time as it. So that way, geopositionary satellite technology can provide users with accurate, timely, as well as detailed information to improve safety. So the technology also uses a combination of convolutional neural network (CNN) and graphical neural network (GNN), and collectively they make lives easier for users by automatically detecting the number of lanes as well as road types behind obstructions on the roads, or maybe if there are any construction going on the road, or if the roads are closed temporarily or maybe permanently, that also is being addressed by such AI based navigation techniques. So where is it used specifically? Like I already gave you an example of Google Maps. We can also make use of Uber. Like we can think that Uber or maybe Ola. So these are the organizations which are also making use of AI-based technologies behind to provide us with a better travel experience. And other logistic companies which also make use of such techniques or technologies to improve their operational efficiency and analyze road traffic. Based on that, they can also optimize the route so that the courier or maybe the parcel or the product itself can be reaching to the destination within a given amount of time without any hurdles. And moving further, robotics. So robotics has seen a huge improvement since we have had internet, and AI has further boosted. So as I already told you about Sophia, right? Sophia is one of the recent Android humanoid robot, which can be able to understand what people are saying, and based on that, it can think and also provide the response. So that way, you can see that it also has civil citizenship. So that way, AI is the reason behind, which with the help of several techniques like image processing or maybe like a differentiation of data or maybe different ANN based techniques, it is capable enough to understand what a problem is given to it and how it should solve, and to solve so and so problem, what kind of algorithm it has to use, and it also does that in a span of seconds. So that way, robotics have been improvised with the help of AI-based techniques, where how is it being really put to work? So rather than not just talking about Android humanoid robot, how and where it is again basically helpful. So like for instance, robotics is basically where AI applications are improvised as well as used day by day, And here there are robots which are powered by again the same technology, which makes of real-time updates to sense obstacles in its path, as well as pre-plan its journey when it's starting out. Like for example, it can be used for carrying goods from one place to the other, or even hospitals or factories or warehouses itself, and also in cleaning the offices and large equipments, and also in inventory management for the stores which are storing some stock, etc. So now that was about robotics. Then speaking about human resource, like in an organization, you can see that most of the things like administrate on the side of administration, human resource is the one who has to spend most of the time understanding the mindset of the employees, and how the if there are different departments within an organization, each department shall deal with a different scenario of the work, and based on the scenario of the work, their mindset their thinking capabilities as well as how they interact with each other might also change accordingly. So that way, despite they are working with different departments, they basically belong to one single organization. So to make sure that they are taken all the way from one place to the other in terms of improvisation, or maybe like if they are working on a common project, they should have all have a common thinking as well as a common mindset, so that it can be beneficial for the organization as well as for the project itself. So that way, it is a crucial task for any human resource manager to understand different employees, or also to provide them with a better experience in the office itself. It can be right from starting of hiring an employee, and then providing or maybe like allotting them with a department based on how they work or maybe what are the abilities, and further promoting them or maybe like taking them further to the different departments, so that how they can work, whether that suits better to their capabilities or not. So these kind of works or scenarios can be further upgraded, or like what do you say, like the amount of HR work is being reduced by AI based technologies. So basically, it helps in blind hiring. So what do I mean by blind hiring? So if you go back like 5 to 6 years ago, how would the hiring process would be? So people used to have pen and papers, and on the pen and paper, like basically a question paper would be provided, and based on the question, uh, candidate has to solve it and then take the right option. So that way they have to follow the same, and these questions as well as answers will be evaluated by an HR, and then after evaluation, the after so and so students have crossed 80% only will be allowed for the next round. And again, in terms of what is like group discussion, so again HR has to spend more time over there to analyze how this student is performing, whether which student is better in performing a team work, or maybe like being responsible for so and so task with help of group discussion. So based on that, again the HR has to come up with so and so candidates and then push them further to the next round of either technical or HR assets. So you can see the hiring process generally in organization can be tedious, and that is now being reduced or be improvised with the help of AI-based learning, or AI-based techniques, where now the candidates can take online examinations or online tests, where the test will be automatically evaluated, and when they are taking the test, the camera shall be on, as well as what and how they are interacting with the test right now, whether they are seeing somewhere else or maybe if they are interacting with any other thing as such, will be continuously monitored by an AI, and that way they'll ensure that the student is or the candidate is completely focused on providing that, sorry, taking the test alone rather than not disturbed or maybe like doing any such malpractices. And the evaluation is done instantly by an AI algorithm on the backend. And based on that, again, the segregated or the candidates who have crossed or who have successfully passed the first round of test will be implemented to go through a group discussion. And again, this group discussion shall be virtual completely. So for instance, right now we all are having a virtual meeting, right? So let's understand that I'm a candidate, and on the other side there's a candidate from Chennai, and on the other side there's a candidate from Mumbai, Pune, etc. So we all are connecting on a virtual platform where there's no need for a HR to be present. So again, there can be an AI bot which will recognize the facial expression, and when I'm saying something, if a topic is being presented to me, it will recognize like how my voice tone is, whether I'm responding in a positive way and whether I'm responding in a negative way. So if I'm responding in either positive or negative, how that is going to impact my presence in an organization and my communication or interaction with other colleagues. So all that scenarios will be automatically analyzed by an AI bot, so that it can have a clear understanding of, okay, so and so students have shown so and so responsible behaviors. That way, using this, the AI can demonstrate and say that so these students are capable enough to being working in our organization, so that they can be sent further for the next round of interviews as such. That way, the amount of work the HR has to face throughout the process of hiring is just reduced to a smaller extent with the help of such AI-based techniques. So that way, it can probably scan job candidates' profile and resumes to provide automatically, can be also completely do a complete hiring processes. And right now you can see, because of the pandemic issues, lots of people are working from home, and that's not the scenario. People are also learning teaching from home as well. And again, there's a new trend like on board from home itself, like the students who have completed their colleges, who are looking for the new jobs, they're having an online onboards, so they are probably hired online itself. So there's no need for them to go to the organization and collect their laptops, or maybe like collect their results for appointment later. Everything's done online, and you can see like the scenario is changing. So might be possibly after 5 to 6 years, this might be the scenario of IT industries moreover. And some other industries of different domains might also prefer to have their employees working from anywhere with the help of internet. And speaking about healthcare, where healthcare has a vast use of AI in different scenarios, starting from segregation of their medicines all the way until doing or performing a surgery itself. So for instance, like storing the data of a patient is also a crucial task, right? So you can see that generally, if I'm visiting a hospital, so first of all, they'll ask my name, they'll take my number and my address, etc. There'll be a person at the reception, they'll take my details and store it on an Excel file, and then they'll keep it, or maybe they can upload it onto the cloud, so that they can have my data when needed. So that either if they need a donor for blood, which probably suit to my uh, for instance, if I'm AB positive, if someone else who has met an accident, or maybe who's sick and who's in need of AB positive blood, they can contact me if I'm nearby, and if I can reach to them, so that can be a help. Or maybe there can be another scenario to understand, like for instance, in terms of COVID itself, like when I have visited a hospital, at the same time the other person who is positive of COVID also has visited. So I might be a primary contact as well. So that to trace back a customer or maybe a patient itself, definitely they need to maintain this data. And you can see doing this physically, storing that one after another, month wise, week wise, day wise, is definitely a crucial task to be done. But with the help of AI, you can see that automatically a patient, when he's entering an hospital, he can have a tablet in front of him. He can just type his name as well as his email address and his phone number as well as his residential address. Automatically, the photo will also be taken, and the data will be stored over the cloud, and there will be a segregation done. So based on the need, the customer can be called or maybe like traced back differently, because the AI has probably stored this data in a categorized manner already. And also to understand, like for instance, whether my condition is improvising or not. For instance, let's assume that I'm going through a severe disease. That way, I have to visit my hospital regularly. And again, the doctor can make use of such AI-based technology, where he can be able to understand whether my condition is improvising. Definitely, as a doctor, he'll be able to know. But with help of AI, he can also get much accurate results, saying that uh, based on not only my disease but on my behavior and also the looks as well as how I walk, how I interact with people, whether I'm improvising or whether there are any chances that I have to go on for the strict medication as such. So likewise, doctors also can benefit from with such AI-based techniques, so that they can provide further as well as much necessary medication for a so-and-so patient, so they can have a proper treatment. And also in terms of uh, storage, like it can be medicines or any medical based product itself, we can see that some has to be stored on so and so scenario, like some shall be stored in different room temperature, some shall be stored in so and so as such. So categorizing them is also a task, and that can be again simply made easy by the AI based bots. Lastly, I can generally talk about AI based robots who can be able to perform surgeries. So there are successful surgeries which are being already performed by robots on different developed nations, but adding AI as a component to them will again have a positive improvisation in for the future. And speaking about farming or maybe agriculture, like you can see that India is basically known as 70% agricultural nation, and we do not know like how much extent to that is even now. But you can see that as the technology is improvising, but the farmers are still following a traditional method of farming as well as agriculture practices. So why should we not also improvise their methods, and using the AI based techniques they can also be benefited in understanding different seasons and predicting the climate, and also based on that they can change the cultivation habits so that they can what do you say like tackle the famine, or maybe like they can tackle floods, etc. So that way AI can be used in not only understanding the climate scenarios and also the farming techniques, but also helping the farmer to identify if there are any diseases or pests under their uh, cultivation itself. So for instance, if there's a pest which is unnoticeable to a human eye, but there might be the pest might be present, which might affect the plant on a later stage when it's giving a produce, or when it's yielding some uh, product to be specific, or fruit or vegetable, etc. So likewise, that way to previously keep the farmer or maybe the person address saying that these plants are already affected with so and so. So to prevent that, you can follow so and so necessary steps. You can provide this kind of fertilizers, or maybe follow a different practice so that it should be prevented further. So that way, they can make use of AI-based drones, which can make use of enhanced image recognition practices. And using this AI-based image recognition, they can detect if there are any diseases within the plant just by scanning the leaf of the plant itself, or maybe just scanning the whole plant. They can also be able to address whether the plant is healthy or not, whether it's going through any pest or is infected internally as such. Likewise, there are a number of such techniques where AI can again help farmers to further improvise their traditional methods so that they can not only yield better produce but also have an upgraded understanding of how weather is going to be, and based on that they can act accordingly. And speaking about applications of AI in gaming, so previously it was only about spending time or like passing time when you talk about games. But now games are probably not only just for passing the times, but also helping us in learning new things and also gaining much more capabilities. For instance, if you want to learn something like there have been scenarios where people who never went to what's like a martial arts class or anything similar to that, they probably have handled themselves when there was a fight normally on a street, or maybe when they were walking by. That was because they have had an experience of playing a similar game where like they know how to tackle a person, or maybe even someone's attacking them, how they have to behave so that they can tackle and also save themselves from that respective scenario. That way games are not only about learning sorry not only about making use of technology to spend time, but also to learning new things capably. And here, as you can see, games are improvising day by day, which is having a number of market share across the globe. So I'm not talking about only the mobile phones. I'm talking about computers, sorry, PCs, Macs, etc. So like there are different devices itself for the gaming purpose. So you can just imagine how far the gaming has gone. So now we also have AR, VR based gaming also, so that we can have a live interaction with so and so characters, so that it can be also called as an immersed experience. So that's what we call that, right? So that we can have as much as experience possibly, so that we can be fully present at the place of the character, so that we can interact with so and so scenarios and also come up with so and so levels as well. So now here, in the gaming, AI is also used, using which it can predict human behavior, using which the game design and testing can be improvised. So that way it benefits the organizations in such processes. And there are similar games where they basically AI used to stalk the player throughout the game. So it monitors the behaviors of the player, like how he interacts, or maybe how he fights with the so and so enemy, so that they can further improvise the game and make the levels further tough for this also person to play and also spend more time over there. So that way gaming basically makes of artificial intelligence systems like director AI, which is frequently known to have a name of alien artificial intelligence. which is driven by sensors and behaviors that continuously hunt the player. So like there are different games which follow such AI technologies to ensure that how a human is behaving, and also based on that how the levels can be further modified and improvised so that you can have a better as well as immersive experience within the game. And speaking about automotive or automobiles, so I can simply talk about Tesla over here, where you can see that generally now Tesla has probably introduced self-driving cars, which are capable of understanding the source and destination and also navigate between them in a smooth way. Despite that, there are several scenarios where the cars need a manual driving to be done at some places where the chance of AI to perform can be less. Apart from that, you can see that using image recognitions, it can be able to track how many vehicles are further, or maybe using different sensors, it can also track how many vehicles are moving behind or going forward. It can also trace back different lanes so that it can stay on the lane and also provide a proper driving experience without an issue. And that is again going to improvise further. Speaking about social media like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or anything, so whatever the social media we interact with, we can see that all of them are probably full with AI. So I already gave you an overview that, like for instance, if I'm scrolling through an Instagram feed, I can see that the post which I'm seeing, or probably from the source of profiles which I have previously followed, and you can see only the like-minded posts and even the ads we see on our feeds are the like-minded, so that we can spend time over there. And when we spend time over there, the so-and-so Instagram organization gets benefited because they are showing an ad to you, and using that they are getting money from the person who is uh, behind the ad itself. So likewise, it considers your likes and accounts you follow to determine what kind of posts you are shown on your so and so feed. And same way, it also uses a tool called deep text over here, with which it can be able to understand conversations better. So it's not only about your feed, it also about your text. When you're talking with the other person through a message, it also reads your text to understand and make your conversations better. And it can be used to translate posts from one language to the other. Like for example, Facebook we have, right? If you're viewing a post which is having a different language, or maybe like it's written in Spanish or maybe French, there'll be a button somewhere to say that, like it says that okay, click on this to translate in English as it. When you click on that, you could see the complete post itself is being translated into in English. So that way it provides such a facility for the users that they can have this understanding of what it is, even if it's from a different language. And specifically in Twitter, you could see there are most of such defensive tweets done by different people. It can be not only people, it can be different organizations or even terrorists itself. So that way, here to keep things much more social and also not much more what is like complicated is the case for Twitter and sorry the Twitter organization itself. So that way they make use of AI based techniques behind to detect such fraud as well as removing any such propaganda, and also to completely reject such hateful content online. So that should not create a scenario which could be affecting the minds of the other people who are viewing it. That way it prevents such social outbreak, and that way it keeps the society in a calm as well as simpler way, and also recommends tweets that users might enjoy. That's how basically the AI in the social media platforms engage and keep you interacting with it. And speaking about finance and marketing, so finance and marketing, we can see that these are the one such fields where a person or an employee who's working over there has to spend much more time, or you can say like he has to do much more brainstorming. So speaking about finance, we can talk about share markets itself, right? So right now you can see like in these 2 to 3 years, or like in these 5 years, the span of increase in share markets which we are seeing was not seen earlier or prior to that. The reason is you can see that right now if you go to your Play Store and if you just type share market or stock asset, you can see that n number of applications are listed into it. And not only that, these applications are also integrated with AI based platforms where they will, the thing is all you have to do is like invest, and there will be AI based platforms which will suggest you that the stock you have invested in might or like might not have a probability of increasing in so and so days with so and so percentage. So it will have an automatic probability system with which the user can benefit. So there's no way for a user to brainstorm and understand that, and also keep viewing his mobile phone or maybe the stock application always that whether the stock has increased, decreased, increased, decreased asset. So based on the AI behind, automatically the process is responsible, as well as you can say that it is completely taken care of. Like when you're just investing on so and so stock, all you have to set is the selling point as well as the not selling point. So when the price falls or maybe goes beyond, automatically the product, or sorry, the stock shall be sold or not sold accordingly, and then the intimation will also be provided to you. So this tracking is again done by such AI bots behind. And also in making any such similar financial decisions, it can be with regards to what is like governments or maybe like any private organizations who are dealing with higher financial documents. So AI again can be possibly doing over there. Like for instance, if I'm talking about a specific organization, like for example I'm saying, it's not that this organization alone is following this, like JP Morgan or yeah, to be specific, so they also follow some financial practices, right? So that way they have to read, like the employees over there have to read the documents and understand whether they are legal or not. Based on that only they can approve as such. So you can see that for example, if an employee spends almost 30 days on reading the documents, an AI bot only spends like 1 or 2 hours to spend to read the documents. You can see how much AI is definitely benefiting these organizations to push further and also stay up ahead in the market. And speaking about marketing, where like marketers can deliver highly targeted as well as personalized ads. For example, we have YouTube, right? So when you play a video, you can see that an ad is popping up, and you could also understand that this ad might some way align to the shopping experience you have done previously or maybe the product you have been looking for. So that way AI is the reason behind it, is completely or continuously monitoring your interactions with your mobile phone. Like if you're looking for a so-and-so product, and based on these products alone, the ads also will provide you when you're viewing a specific video on your YouTube. So that's how the recognition happens, and they make use of users behavioral analysis and pattern recognition and other several tech algorithms, and also helps in retargeting the audiences at the right time to ensure better results and reduce feelings of disrupt as well as annoyance. So that way AI is again helpful to provide us with such services in terms of marketing as well. And in content marketing, where the matches or with the brand styles and other products from the brand itself, which can be used to handle routine tasks like performance, campaign reports, and much more, which can be provided as a notification to the users that they can come back and interact with it and also spend more time possibly on the Samsung platform. And again, marketing organizations also make use of several chatbots powered by artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and other similar algorithms so that they can analyze the user's language and respond as similar to as a human. So likewise, they can also provide us with real-time personalizations based on our behavior and can be using that to edit and optimize marketing campaigns to fit a local market need so that they can penetrate in the market as much as possibly despite having competitors growing. So likewise, there are a number of applications I can talk about. So these are the major ones we have listed out. So there are AI applications in chatbots, in finance, as I told you. So like there are multiple places where AI is finding its way and is improvising day by day. So here we can see what is the revenue of artificial intelligence. It can be from a smaller chatbot all the way until a humanoid robot itself. You can see that we have had an understanding of the history of AI already, and you can see that it has had a stable growth right from 2014. We can say when we had Apple Siri, Google's Home Assistant, as well as Amazon's Alexa. So that way you can see by 2018 it has had a market revenue of 10.1 US billion dollars. and it is estimated that by 2025 the number is going to exponentially increase. You can see that it's going to be approximately 126 US billion dollars. So this how the market of your AI is going to grow, and as the market is growing, definitely there are different opportunities in terms of careers as well as jobs, and also the technological advancements in the industries of various domains is also going to happen simultaneously. And speaking about the adoption of artificial intelligence in India, you can see that according to a report by PwC India, the highest increase of artificial intelligence was during COVID times. So it was 2 years ago, right? So since then, it has seen a drastic increase in different sectors. Like you can see that almost 90% of the companies are implementing or probably have an idea of planning to or have an idea of to sorry have an idea of investing in AI based applications or solutions so that they can further improvise their businesses to the next level even when the situation of pandemic continues. And you can see that it was led by travel as well as hospitality sector back then, with almost 90% of surveyed firms doing so, followed by telecom as well as media and technology with 86%, and financial services with an approximate of 82%, and healthcare as well as pharmaceutical companies of 73% during the same year. And it also says that 94% of the respondents have either implemented or have an idea of having an AI based application either in their homes or maybe in the organizations itself. So you can see this how we, or maybe like as a nation, we also are responding to the adoption of AI in the coming days. And you can see it is vastly improvising in different sectors. So guys, that was all about the applications or real-time application of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So I'll just give you a small overview of the project which we are working in our organization right now. So we are probably working on home automation project where it's a what is like a dream project for us to be specific way. We are looking forward to provide a home automation service for right from a small home all the way until a huge apartment itself. And also what we have seen is like home automation is not only about embedded systems and IoT. It's not only about switches and buttons or with the mobile interfaces. It's also about how we interact with our devices either when we are inside the home or when we are not presented inside the home, and what kind of experience we are looking for. So that way, to make that much more simpler and helpful for such home automation based applications, we probably are developing Gusto interactive voice assistant. So this could somewhat, not exactly, but somewhat depict as similar to as virtual assistant in Iron Man, right? So I have seen that Iron Man probably would be speaking to a virtual voice always when he was in his home or maybe when he is going outside. The same thing we are trying to implement here, but only within the homes. Okay, so only within the homes where the way we interact with our devices when we turn on the lights, when we turn off the lights, or when we watch TV or when we listen to the music, there will be an AI bot collecting these data, and based on that, it will provide us with a comfortable experience so that depending on a mood, it can suggest us what kind of music to listen on. Also, we can have a complete naturally processed language with the interaction for the user so that even just by the communication the lights can be turned on or turned off, and it will be completely in a natural way. It's not like we're talking with a robot asset. So that way we are looking forward to also improvise it not only on the personal aspects but also to provide the users with different reminders so that they can they might have forgot to turn on or turn off so and so device when they are having a. So that way the assistant can communicate with the user, and based on that they can take its decisions, or the AI itself can take its decisions based on the presence of user or not presence of the user within the home. And then we have AI eyes for the facial recognition of a user who when he's trying to enter or leave the premises. Then an AI based planner if they're having any occasions, or if they want to have a rich experience further based on their interactions or maybe previous experiences. we can provide them with a rich experience further so that they can make use of the service in a much more positive way further. All right, so with this we are coming to the conclusion of module 1. I hope the session was productive. If anyone has any queries or feedback, kindly provide them.
If anyone has queries, you can please ask.
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am. So I told that I'll be showing a video. So just a second.
Okay.
Okay, so this was the robot I was talking about. Her name's Ameka, and she was presented in the Consumer Electronics Show 2022. And you can just see how the improvisation is being done compared to the Sophia which we had earlier.
I see your camera. I also have cameras in my eyes. Well, I am designed as a research platform for human-robot interaction. Communication is my main source of priority.
We've looked closer at how the human body is actuated and moves and tried to replicate the key movements using our own system of motors, gears.
Are you enjoying CES?
Well, us robots do not feel, but if I did, the answer would be 100% yes.
The images from the webcams are processed so that Amika has an understanding of the people around her, if they're happy, sad, surprised, angry, and to be able to respond to that emotion. The main application for a robot that looks like us is for communication. We've been typing away at keyboards, a Victorian era device to interact with things on screen. If you want to do something human-based, AI-based, you really want an artificial body to go with your artificial intelligence. That's where Amika comes in.
Sing me a song.
sing you a song. Will you sing first?
All right, so I hope all of you would have enjoyed the video, right? That's what I was talking about. So further, if anyone has any questions or queries with the topics we have covered in the module 1, you can probably provide in the form of feedback.
Thank you for the informative and knowledgeable session, sir.
You're welcome, ma'am.
So I have a question. Uh,
Yes, ma'am.
uh, is this robot involve lot of use of convolutional neural network? It involves computer vision.
Yes, ma'am. Obviously, as the creator said that he himself said that using the webcams, they are probably what you say, like they're not storing things within the robot itself. The robot is connected to the internet, where it is in real time fetching data. Like for whatever the things we interact in real time right now, same way the robot is interacting, and these images are being fed in, and they are processed online onto the cloud, and based on that, the responses provided by the robot.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Anyone else? Would you like to ask any questions? Thank you once again, sir, for the wonderful session.
Welcome, ma'am. So thank you all of you for participating in this session.
Sir, next session is scheduled at 11:30. Since it is already 11:21, at what time should we start the next session, sir?
Is it fine, ma'am? We should continue by 12.
Okay, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
So depending based on that, we can either like move further to 1:30. Is that fine, or we shall keep it to 1 itself?
1:30 is also fine, sir.
Okay, ma'am. So we'll see accordingly.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So thank you all.